I stood on the porch, barefoot, shaking so hard my teeth clicked. Snow crusted the hem of my pajama pants. And when I saw my mom peek through the blinds and turn them shut, that's when I knew she wasn't coming back. Please take a moment and listen to what I'm about to share. If this story stays with you, consider liking and subscribing to help others hear it too. I was 12 years old. The snow had been falling all afternoon, and by night, the wind howled through our quiet street like a warning. I was in my room reading when Mom called me downstairs. She looked angry, her arms crossed. "Out," she said. "Now." I thought she was joking. I was wearing thin pajamas, no socks, no shoes. But she dragged me by the wrist to the front door and shoved me out before I could grab anything. The door slammed shut behind me. I stood there, stunned, as snowflakes landed on my bare feet and melted into ice water. I turned and knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. Still nothing. Then I saw the blinds shift. My mom was there. She looked right at me, then pulled the blinds close. I started crying. My teeth were chattering, my fingers turning red. I didn't understand why she was doing this. I thought maybe if I knocked loud enough, she'd open the door. But she didn't. So I did the only thing I could think of. I started knocking on neighbors' doors. 1 house. 2 houses. 3. I knocked, I begged. "Please, it's freezing. Please help me." Lights were on inside. I knew people were home. But no one opened. Finally, an old man cracked his door open and stared at me. "Aren't you Denise's kid?" I nodded. He frowned. "She told us not to answer if you came knocking. Said you were making up stories." He shut the door. That's when it hit me. My mom had told them all to ignore me. She made sure no one would help. I wasn't just out in the cold. I was out there alone on purpose. I kept walking, my feet numb, tears freezing on my cheeks. Just when I felt like I couldn't take another step, a porch light turned on at the end of the block. A soft voice called out, "Are you okay, sweetheart?" It was Miss Granger. She took one look at me and rushed outside with a blanket. She didn't ask questions, just pulled me inside and sat me by the heater. She called someone child services, I later learned. That night, I realized something. My mother didn't love me, not even a little, and the people who could have helped didn't. I was just a kid, cold, alone, unwanted. But I wasn't going to stay that way forever. The day after the blizzard, I woke up in a warm bed with heavy blankets and the soft smell of cinnamon in the air. Miss Granger had made oatmeal and hot cocoa. She smiled at me like I mattered. I hadn't seen a smile like that in years. She called child services, even though my mom had told the whole neighborhood not to help me. "I don't care what that woman said," Miss Granger told the caseworker on the phone. "No child should be out in the cold like that." As they started asking questions, everything came flooding back, things I had buried deep because they hurt too much. I remembered how my mom changed after Dad died. I was only 6 when the car accident happened. He used to call me his little light. He would dance with me in the kitchen, pack me special lunches, and tell me bedtime stories every night. After he died, something in Mom broke. But instead of grieving, she turned her sadness into blame and aimed it all at me. "It should have been you," she once whispered when she thought I was asleep. Every mistake I made, spilling milk, forgetting homework, leaving my shoes by the door, she treated like a disaster. "You ruin everything. Just like you ruined my life," she would hiss, eyes full of hate. I didn't understand. I was just a kid trying to be good enough. But I was never enough for her. She stopped packing my lunch, stopped attending school events. At home, she barely spoke to me unless it was to yell. I would come home to cold dinners or sometimes nothing at all. Her boyfriends didn't help either. Some ignored me. Others were worse. When I tried to tell her, she rolled her eyes and told me to stop making up stories. I used to dream that one day she'd change, that she'd suddenly hug me and say, "I'm sorry, Ellie. I love you." But that moment never came. After the blizzard night, when child services stepped in, she didn't fight for me. Not once. She signed the paperwork without tears, without even looking at me. I stood there in the hallway of the office while she grabbed her purse and walked out like I was nothing more than trash on the curb. That's when I realized she didn't want me. She never did. Miss Granger offered to take me in, but the system didn't allow it. They placed me in foster care, and that's when a whole new kind of struggle began. But I never forgot the feeling of Miss Granger's arms around me or her whispering, "You didn't deserve any of this." And she was right. I didn't. But knowing that didn't make the pain disappear. It just made me more determined. One day, I promised myself, I'd make sure my story was heard. I wasn't just a forgotten kid. I was someone who survived a mother who never wanted her, and lived to tell the truth. After my mom gave me up without a single tear, the state placed me in foster care. I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd find a family who would love me. A fresh start. A new home. But I was wrong. The first house seemed okay at first. The couple smiled a lot, but they kept me locked in my room when guests came over. I wasn't allowed to eat at the table. The mom said I had too much attitude because I asked for a second slice of bread. The dad gave me long stares that made my skin crawl. I stayed there 3 months. Then one night I ran away. The second house was worse. The foster mom accused me of stealing money from her purse. I hadn't touched it, but she called me a liar and slapped me so hard my lip bled. Her husband said, "She's just another broken kid." And I knew then I wouldn't find love there either. By the time I was 15, I had moved through 5 different homes. Some used me as a babysitter for their real kids. Others took the money from the state and spent it on themselves, giving me old clothes that didn't fit and food that was about to expire. One girl in a home stole everything I owned, even my only photo of my dad. When I cried, the foster mom shrugged and said, "That's life." So I stopped crying. I stopped hoping. I started writing names down. In my mind, I made a list: Denise, the neighbors who closed their doors, the foster parents who hurt me, ignored me, or used me. I kept count of every person who let me freeze, starve, or cry alone. By the time I turned 18, I was legally free. No more foster homes, but I had nowhere to go. No family, no money, no support. I packed my tiny bag and walked out of the last foster home without looking back. They didn't say goodbye. They didn't care. I slept in a shelter my first night out. The bed smelled like bleach and sadness, and I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I was alone, completely alone, but I was also free. And I had something stronger than sadness now: rage. I didn't want pity. I didn't want fake families. I wanted something real, justice. Not from a courtroom, but from life itself. I decided I'd make sure they remembered me, the woman I'd become. I wouldn't scream or beg. I'd show them, one by one, that the girl they threw away didn't just survive, she returned. No one had saved me, so I'd save myself, and they would never forget me. After aging out of the system, I bounced between couches, shelters, and sidewalk. Some nights, I slept in the back room of a 24-hour laundromat. Other nights, I stayed awake in fast food booths, pretending to wait for someone who never came. I took a night shift job at a gas station just outside town. The pay was terrible, but it was something. I stocked shelves, cleaned bathrooms, and tried to ignore the way people looked right through me, like I didn't exist. One night, around 3 a.m., a woman came in covered in tattoos and glitter. She had a bright smile, even though her eyes looked tired. She bought a pack of gum and a soda, then asked if I was okay. No one ever asked that. I lied and said I was fine. The next night, she came back. And the night after that. Her name was Jada. She was a tattoo artist, worked down the street, and had once been in the system too. She said she recognized the look in my eyes, alone but trying. Eventually, she offered me her couch. I hesitated, but I had nothing to lose. Jada's apartment was messy and loud with music and color, but it felt warm. Safe. She never treated me like I was broken. Instead, she gave me a spare key, a shelf in the fridge, and the name of a free GED program nearby. "You're smart," she told me one night as we ate instant noodles on her couch. "You just need someone to believe it." So I started believing it too. I worked nights and studied during the day. Slowly, I saved up a little money. Enough for clothes that fit, a phone that worked, and meals that weren't from a vending machine. Jada helped me through every step. But even as my life began to settle, the past didn't let go. I still saw Denise's face every time I closed my eyes. I still remembered every slammed door, every ignored cry for help, every fake smile from people who let me suffer. I didn't want just closure anymore. I wanted truth. I wanted the people who forgot me to remember. I wanted Denise to see what she'd thrown away. So I started planning. I made a list. Not just names, but details, addresses, where they worked, what they cared about. I researched quietly, saving screenshots, printing old records from library computers, keeping it all in a notebook hidden under my mattress. Denise would be first, but she wouldn't even see me coming. I didn't want revenge in the movies kind of way. I didn't want to hurt people physically. I wanted something worse, for them to feel what I felt. Cold, exposed, forgotten. I wanted their worlds to shake like mine had. And most of all, I wanted them to know the girl they left in the snow was still standing. And this time I wasn't knocking. I was walking through the door. I hadn't seen the house in nearly 10 years, but the moment I stepped onto the sidewalk, it all came flooding back. The porch where I'd stood barefoot in the snow. The window where I saw her peek through the blinds and shut them without a second thought. My heart beat faster, but I kept walking. I wasn't that helpless girl anymore. I had dyed my hair, changed my style, even changed my name. To the world, I was Elle Martin now. No one connected me to Ellie Monroe, the kid everyone forgot. Denise still lived in that house. But things had changed. The mailbox now read the Barretts. She'd married Rick Barrett, a wealthy contractor who owned one of the biggest building firms in town. According to my research, they'd been together for 5 years. She had stepped right into a new life like nothing had happened. What made me feel sick was how she acted now. Denise had become the perfect suburban stepmom. Her social media was filled with smiling photos of family dinners, holiday cookies, and heartwarming posts about her amazing stepdaughter, Cassie, a teenage girl with bright eyes and braces. I wondered if Cassie ever saw the coldness behind Denise's smile. I didn't want to confront her yet. Not face to face. I wanted to watch first. I wanted to see how deep her lies went, and what she cared about most now. So I applied for a job at Rick Barrett's firm. The position was perfect, front desk receptionist. It was the kind of job where you go unnoticed, but you hear everything. I used my fake name and made sure my background looked clean. With Jada's help, I crafted a fake resume and borrowed a blazer that made me look professional enough to pass the interview. Rick hired me on the spot. The office was sleek, filled with glass walls and expensive chairs. Rick came across as decent, kind even. I didn't know what he saw in Denise, but I was going to find out. A week into the job, I saw her. She walked in wearing pearls and designer heels, holding a tray of cookies like she was everyone's favorite aunt. She kissed Rick on the cheek and said she was just dropping off a little love. Then her eyes met mine, just for a second. She didn't recognize me. Not even a flicker of doubt crossed her face. Good. From that day on, I paid close attention. I made polite small talk with Cassie when she stopped by. I organized files, took messages, smiled at Denise. And every night, I added notes to my growing folder. This wasn't just about Denise anymore. It was about every lie she told, every person who believed her, and every time she pretended to be someone she wasn't. She had built a new life on top of the ashes of mine, and I was going to burn it down, slowly, carefully, and with a smile. Working at the firm gave me more than a paycheck. It gave me access. Every email, every meeting, every visit from Denise was a chance to chip away at the lie she had built. I didn't rush it. I had waited this long. I could wait a little longer. It started with small things, harmless comments that didn't feel like much, until they added up. One afternoon, Rick was showing me old pictures of the neighborhood. "We love it here," he said. "Denise says it's always been a peaceful place." I smiled and said, "Yeah, except for that winter storm years ago when the police had to do welfare checks on the kids left outside. That was awful." Rick paused. "Really? Denise never mentioned that." "Oh, maybe she wasn't here then," I said, pretending to shrug. "Or maybe she forgot." Another time, Cassie and I were talking during lunch. She mentioned how loving Denise was, how she always made her feel safe. I smiled gently. "That's sweet. Not everyone's lucky like that. Some people have stepmoms who act kind but hide a lot." Cassie laughed at first, but I saw her eyes flicker with curiosity. Then came the documents. With Jada's help, I created a realistic-looking adoption form, dated years ago, with Denise's name on it. It said she had relinquished custody of a child due to emotional instability and neglect. I didn't sign it. I just accidentally left it on the printer in the office where Rick sometimes grabbed files. It was gone the next day. The following week, I heard them arguing behind closed doors. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. "You never told me." "That's not real, Rick. Someone's trying to mess with us." He didn't sound convinced. Denise started coming by the office more often after. Her smiles were tighter. Her eyes scanned me like she was trying to remember something. But she couldn't place me. That was the best part. I corrected little things she said in meetings, too. If she said she'd lived on Oak Street for 10 years, I'd chime in gently. "I thought that house was empty for a while after the accident. Or maybe I'm thinking of another house." People started noticing. Not anything huge, just cracks. I watched her unravel, slowly and painfully. Rick became quieter. Cassie grew distant. Denise started to slip, forgetting details or getting defensive over small things. She once cornered me in the hallway and said, "Do I know you?" I smiled. "No, ma'am. I just have one of those faces." Every day, I got a little closer. Not just to revenge, but to the truth being exposed. I wanted her to feel the tension, the panic, the sense that everything could collapse at any moment. Because that's how I lived for years. She built her life on lies, and I was making sure those lies started to rot from the inside out. The neighborhood looked almost exactly the same. Neatly trimmed lawns, wind chimes hanging from porches, flower beds full of color. But to me, it still felt cold. Not because of the weather, but because I remembered what it felt like to be 12 years old, barefoot, and ignored by every one of these perfect little homes. It was time to knock again. I didn't expect anyone to hug me. I didn't want apologies. I just wanted the truth, to hear it from them, and to let them see what they turned their backs on. I started with the Mitchell's house. Mrs. Mitchell answered the door with a hesitant smile. "Can I help you?" I kept my voice calm. "You may not recognize me, but I'm Ellie Monroe, the girl who knocked on your door one winter night, begging for help." Her face dropped. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Ellie, oh my God. I just wanted to ask why," I said quietly. "Why didn't you open the door?" Tears welled up in her eyes. Your mother said you were dangerous. She told us you were unstable and violent, that we should stay out of it. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I pulled out my phone and hit record. Can you say that again? She nodded slowly, as if in a daze. Your mom told us you were mentally unstable, that you might hurt someone. I believed her. I'm so sorry. I left before she could say more. At the next house, the door opened halfway. Mr. Jensen stood there, older now, but his eyes were just as cold. I remember you, he said. You caused a lot of trouble. I was a 12-year-old locked out in a snowstorm. We were told not to help, he replied. It wasn't our place. No, I said. It was your choice. He slammed the door. I moved house to house, face to face. Some looked away. Some cried. Some offered empty excuses. We didn't know. We thought it was best. Your mom said. And that's what it came back to every time. Denise. She told them all I was dangerous, out of control, unstable. She painted herself as the victim, the poor mother with the troubled child. And they believed her without ever looking into my eyes or asking if I was okay. I recorded every conversation, every admission, every excuse. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about the truth. At the last house, an old man named Mr. Carlyle stood in silence for a long time after I told him who I was. Then he said softly, I heard you crying. I still hear it sometimes. That stayed with me. They could never take back what they did, or didn't do. But now they'd have to remember. I wasn't the lost little girl anymore. This time, I was the one standing tall. And I was done being ignored. I planned the dinner party like it was a business event, polite, classy, and impossible for Denise to say no to. I told Rick we should host something special to honor his recent business milestone. He loved the idea. Denise, of course, jumped in to help with the guest list, acting like the queen of the castle. She had no idea what was coming. The night arrived. The dining room sparkled with candles and wine glasses. Rick sat at the head of the table, with Denise glowing beside him, playing the part of the perfect wife. Cassie sat across from me, smiling politely but clearly bored. I kept the conversation light at first, talking about work, neighborhoods, childhood stories. And then I steered it. I actually used to live in this neighborhood, I said casually, letting my eyes land on Denise. Years ago. Her smile froze just a little. Really? Small world. Yeah. It was tough back then. My mom abandoned me during a blizzard. Locked me outside. I was barefoot. Silence. Rick looked at me with surprise. You're serious? I nodded. Very. Then I stood. There's someone I want you all to meet. She helped raise me after that night, from my second foster home. I opened the door, and in walked Diane, my former foster mother. She looked nervous but determined. I had begged her to come, not to relive the pain, but to help me reveal the truth. Diane sat down and shared just enough, how I came to her thin, bruised, and silent. How Child Services had a long file on what happened to me. How Denise never fought for me. Denise's face was pale now. That's not true, she snapped. None of that's true. You sure? I asked, pulling out my phone, because one of your old neighbors still had their doorbell footage from that night. Want to take a look? I tapped play. The room went still. There I was on the screen, a tiny girl, barefoot in the snow, knocking, crying. And then the camera captured it, Denise peeking through the blinds and pulling them shut. Denise gasped. This is taken out of context. Cassie looked horrified. Rick pushed his chair back, staring at the screen like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. I was 12, I said softly. I knocked on every door on this street, and you told them to ignore me. Said I was dangerous. Said I didn't deserve help. Rick stood up. You told me you never had kids. Denise's voice cracked. I didn't want her. I couldn't deal with her. She ruined everything. Cassie pushed her plate away, tears in her eyes. You lied. Rick didn't say another word. He just walked out. Cassie followed him. Denise sat there alone, breathing hard, her mask shattered. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just gathered my things, nodded at Diane, and walked out the front door. This time, I left her in the cold. Within a week of the dinner, the news hit the office. Rick had filed for divorce. No warning. No drawn-out conversations. Just a clean, cold break. He moved out and took Cassie with him. Denise was left alone in the house she used to parade as her kingdom. She tried calling me 5 times. I didn't answer once. Instead, I sent the journalist everything. The recorded interviews with the neighbors. The footage from the doorbell camera. Diane's statement. Even copies of the fake adoption paperwork I had planted, just to show how deep her lies had gone. The journalist, Nina, had a column that focused on child neglect and family betrayal. I didn't need my name in the article. I just needed the story out there. And it was. The headline read, Barefoot in a Blizzard, How One Child Was Abandoned and Silenced by the People Who Should Have Helped. It didn't take long for it to spread. People in town recognized the street, the house, the name, Denise Monroe Barrett. Her phone stopped ringing. Her friends stopped inviting her to brunch. Parents at Cassie's school whispered when she walked by. Her charity board seat was quietly revoked. Her social media, once full of smiling family photos and holiday cheer, went silent. There was no jail time, no courtroom drama. But in a town like that, reputation was everything, and Denise's was gone. She sold the house at a loss and disappeared from town not long after. Rumors said she moved in with a cousin out of state. I didn't care enough to check. People asked me afterward if I felt happy, if revenge tasted sweet. It didn't. There was no victory dance. No laughter. Just silence. I didn't feel joy watching her world fall apart. But I did feel something else, peace. Not because she suffered, but because the world finally saw her for who she truly was. And because the little girl I used to be, the one who begged for help in the snow, finally had someone stand up for me. I visited Miss Granger one last time. She was older now, slower, but her eyes lit up when she saw me. "You did it, didn't you?" she asked. I nodded. "Good," she said. "Now go live." So I did. Not for revenge, not for closure, but for the girl no one helped. She deserved more than silence, and I made sure the world heard her scream. Years passed. The name Denise Monroe faded from the news, and from my mind too. The fire I'd carried for so long, the rage, the revenge, it didn't burn the same way anymore. It had done its job, and now I had work to do. Real work. I went back to school, got my degree, then my license, and finally, I became what I never had, a counselor for foster youth. Every day, I sat across from kids whose eyes reminded me of my own. Quiet, guarded, tired from too many moves, too many promises broken. I never asked them to open up right away. I just sat there, steady, present, real. Sometimes that's all a child needs, someone who stays. I shared pieces of my story when it helped. I told them about the snow, the silence, the pain, but also about the survival, about the woman I became, about the people who failed me, and the few who didn't. They listened, and for some of them, that was the beginning of healing. I visited shelters, group homes, halfway houses. I sat on the floors with kids who thought no one cared. I looked them in the eye and said, "I see you. I believe you." And I meant it every single time. One night, I got a call from a local group home. "We've got a new intake. 13. First time in the system. Pretty shaken up. It was late, but I didn't hesitate. I drove across town in the dark. The sky looked just like it had that night when I was 12, quiet, heavy, a little sad. But this time, I wasn't scared of it. When I arrived, the staff pointed me to the last room on the left. A tiny girl sat on the edge of a bed, hugging her backpack to her chest like it was armor. Her shoes were worn down, her face streaked with dried tears. I didn't barge in. I knocked, softly, gently, like I wish someone had done for me all those years ago. She looked up, startled. I smiled. "Hey, I'm Ellie. I'm one of the counselors here." She didn't say anything. I stepped closer. I know tonight probably feels like the worst night of your life. I've had a few of those myself. Still, no words. But her eyes met mine. And in that second, I saw it, that flicker of hope. The same one Miss Granger sparked in me when she opened her door all those years ago. "You're not alone anymore," I said. And I meant it. Because for every door that closed on me, I was going to open 100 more. For every child the world forgot, I was going to remember. And for the girl I used to be, barefoot in the snow, I had finally knocked on the last door. Not to be let in, but to let someone else out of the cold. What would you have done if you were in Ellie's shoes? Walked away quietly, or come back to face the past head-on? Let me know in the comments. I'd really like to hear your thoughts. And if stories like this move you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next.